Okay, this is one of those stories that, has everything: political drama, a really intense family conflict, and even a legal battle that crosses borders. And right at the heart of it all, a former president who, believe it or not, hasn't been buried yet, almost a year after his death. So let's get into it. Seriously, it's a question that sounds like it's straight out of a political thriller, not the 6 o'clock news, right? How on earth does a former head of state end up in a funeral home for nearly a year? We're going to unpack this whole thing. So this is former Zambian President Edgar Lungu. He passed away on June 5th, 2025, in a clinic in South Africa. But here's the thing: his body never returned to Zambia for burial. Instead, his remains are now at the very center of this bitter fight between his own family and the government that he used to lead. All right, to really get what's going on with this stalemate, we've got to start with the family side of the story. And more specifically, what they say was the former president's final wish. You see, a full state funeral was all planned out back in Zambia. I mean, the current president had even declared a period of national mourning. But then, just like that, the Lungu family pulled the plug. They actually stopped the body from being sent back to Zambia and announced they were going to bury him privately in South Africa. And that was the move that just ignited this whole firestorm. And this is where it gets really personal. I mean, the family didn't just want a private funeral. Nope. They had a very specific and very political reason. In a sworn statement, an affidavit to the court, they claimed that the former president had one last dying wish: that his political rival, his successor, President Hichilema, was not to be allowed anywhere near his body. Wow. Okay, so on the other side of this, you've got the Zambian government. And well, they see things very differently. For them, this isn't some private family matter at all. It's an issue of national honor. The government stance is pretty straightforward. They're saying, look, Edgar Lungu wasn't just any citizen. He was a former president, and that means his burial is a state affair, period. He has to be buried with full military honors on Zambian soil. It's all about respecting the office, they say, not just the man himself. So the government fired back. They went to the court and said, hey, there's absolutely no proof that Lungu actually wanted this. They argued that this whole thing is way bigger than any personal feud between two politicians. It's about respecting the presidency itself, no matter what their political differences were. And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? You have a private wish versus a public duty, a family's grief against a nation's honor. And this is the fundamental clash that's gone from a personal dispute to a full-blown international legal battle. So, with both sides completely dug in, the whole fight moved into the courtroom, specifically the courts in South Africa. And that kicked off this really complicated cross-border legal fight. Let's walk through how that all played out. Man, it has been a legal roller coaster. So back in June, the Zambian government actually won the first round. A court in Pretoria ordered the body to be returned, but the Lungu family, they weren't having it. They fought back. After being denied an appeal at first, they took their case to a higher court, the Supreme Court of Appeal, which has now finally agreed to hear their side of the story. So, to put it simply, the family had to fight just to get permission to appeal. Think about that. The first court said no, but they didn't give up. They went to the next level up, the Supreme Court, which finally gave them the green light. And that's exactly why this is still an open case today. So all of that brings us to today. Where does this incredibly complicated and, frankly, emotional case go from here? Well, as of February 9th, the family has now officially filed their appeal. What they're asking South Africa's Supreme Court to do is not just reverse that previous decision, but to throw out the Zambian government's entire case altogether. But, there's another layer to this story that we have to talk about. As this fight over the former president's burials was playing out, a different legal case involving the Lungu family was coming to a head, and it involves some pretty staggering numbers, as you can see. And the timing here is, well, it's interesting, to say the least. Just one day before the family filed their appeal in the burial case, a court back in Zambia ordered that all of these assets be seized from Lungu's son. Now, we'll let you draw your own conclusions about what that might mean. And so, here we are. The stalemate continues. A former president remains unburied, caught in this painful tug-of-war between his family and his country. The final decision now rests entirely with South Africa's Supreme Court of Appeal. This strange and really sad case is about so much more than just one man. It brings up this fundamental question.
When a leader dies, who really gets the final say? The family who loved them or the nation they led? It's a question about where the private person ends and the public figure begins. And ultimately, who gets to own a leader's legacy?